In 2007, David Beckham took a 70% pay cut, walked away from Real Madrid, and joined a league most Americans could not name a single team in. Today, David Beckham is on track to becoming a billionaire, and taking that 70% pay cut and walking from Real Madrid turned out to be the single smartest financial decision he ever made. And the reason why was one specific clause in his contract that almost nobody bothered to read. All right, let's get into it. Phase 1. Own the name, rent the shirt. In 1992, David Beckham debuted for Man United. Over the next 11 years, he won 6 league titles and even a Champions League title. His salary from Manchester was good, but it wasn't historically large compared to some of the other league's biggest stars. That said, the most economically important thing Beckham did at United had nothing to do with money at all. It was the move he took toward owning his own name. Beckham's agent was Tony Stevens of SFX. The two of them held Beckham's image rights as a personal asset and kept control of them separate from the club. Alex Ferguson fought Beckham on that arrangement for years, and the friction went public. Beckham told that story himself in the 2023 Netflix series. The standard arrangement in sports runs the other way. The club owns the shirt, and the sponsor owns the campaign. So the athlete rents his own image back through a wage or a fee. Beckham held the name itself, which made him the landlord instead of the tenant. Own the name, rent the shirt. In 2003, Beckham made the one move that broke his own rule, and it handed 50% of his image rights to someone else. Phase 2, $41 million trap. In June 2003, Real Madrid paid Man United a reported $41 million for David Beckham. Real Madrid was running a project built on superstar signings, designed to sell shirts across Asia and grow commercial income. Beckham fit the bill perfectly, but he was also walking straight into a trap he had spent the last decade avoiding. At Real Madrid, Beckham did not keep his image rights. The club took 50% of his image royalties, the same arrangement it had with its other stars. A Wharton School analysis at the time noted he seemed motivated by prestige as much as money. Now look at what that arrangement actually meant. At the peak of his global fame, the main thing making money off David Beckham wasn't David Beckham, it was Real Madrid. Beckham had handed over half of his most valuable long-term asset to Madrid for the next 4 years. Hold on to this, because the rest of this video is an escape from it. When you're someone else's asset, they take the transfer fee, they sell the shirts, and they keep half your name. The upside flows to the owner, and you are the thing being owned. However, Beckham did have a business win during this period. In 2003, he signed a lifetime endorsement deal with Adidas, reported at about $160.8 million. A lifetime deal with a legacy brand like Adidas is a huge milestone for any athlete, because the checks keep coming in long after an athlete plays their last game. Later, Beckham's actual physical legs were insured by Lloyd's of London for a reported £100 million, which tells you the market itself treated him as a piece of capital. The image rights giveaway at Madrid was a big hit to Beckham's earning potential, but it set up the one key decision that would turn out to be the smartest financial move of Beckham's entire life. Phase 3, the $25 million loophole hidden inside a 70% pay cut. In 2007, David Beckham left Real Madrid for the LA Galaxy, and the headline number was a $250 million contract. That number was mostly fiction. It bundled a modest base salary, a revenue share, and projected endorsement income the Galaxy never actually paid him. Beckham's real base salary was about $32.5 million over the 5-year term, roughly $6.5 million a year, a 70% pay cut from his Real Madrid base salary. The president of Real Madrid called the move a semi-retirement for Beckham, and pretty much everyone agreed. But while everyone was focusing on Beckham's new salary as a fixed rate, they missed the 2 revenue structures underneath the deal that made the whole thing work. MLS ran a hard team salary cap. In 2007, it sat at roughly $2.3 million for an entire roster. Beckham alone wanted $6.5 million a year. The league did not tell him no. MLS, Major League Soccer, rewrote the rulebook. Ahead of the 2007 season, MLS created the designated player rule, which let each club carry players whose wages sat outside the salary cap. Only $400,000 of a designated player's salary counted against it. The owner covered the rest personally. Everyone in American soccer still calls it the Beckham rule, and Beckham was the first player signed under it. Sit with the leverage in that. One player was worth more to a league than its own cost control system, and leverage like that arrives exactly once. Beckham spent his own money on 2 structures underneath that salary. The first was a revenue sharing clause that paid Beckham a percentage of Galaxy income as the club and the league grew, reportedly adding around $18 million across the 5 years. They handed him a slice of the upside he was personally creating just by showing up. And the second structure is one of the most valuable contract clauses in the history of sports. Beckham's deal gave him a personal option to buy a future MLS expansion team in any city except for New York at a fixed price of $25 million, exercisable once he stopped playing. This was the first time MLS had ever offered a deal like like this. At the start of Beckham's contract, the clause looked like a footnote. The most recently acquired MLS team had just gone for about $10 million. So a $25 million locked option looked far too overpriced. Now, here's the real mechanism, and it's the reason this video exists, because read that clause the way a banker would. It's a call option. Beckham held the right, but never the obligation, to buy an asset at a fixed strike price on a date of his own choosing. And the value of that right climbed every single year that expansion fees rose, completely independent of anything he did on the field. He was holding a fixed price claim on an asset class that only went up. This is the trade you should always be on the lookout for. Take the option on the appreciating asset over the bigger paycheck today. That 70% pay cut was never really a pay cut. It was the premium Beckham paid for the option to buy a club at a fixed price whenever he wanted. Beckham retired in 2013. In his first year off the pitch, he earned reportedly $75 million, more than in any single season he had ever played. He exercised the option to enter the league in 2014, but Beckham would quickly realize that he held the cheapest ticket into team ownership, but he couldn't afford to build a stadium for that team to play in. Then he spent 6 years and hundreds of millions of dollars he did not have personally, turning a clause into a real football club. If you want to see how other operators use the exact same system to build 9-figure empires, hit subscribe. On this channel, we stop looking at celebrities as entertainment and start analyzing the money systems behind them. Every single week, we will break down how operators build institutional wealth from unconventional starting points. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Phase 4. Why the man who built the club owns just 10% of it. In February 2014, David Beckham exercised his option and was announced as the owner of a future Miami franchise. MLS formally approved the club in January 2018, and it started playing in 2020. Getting from the clause to a functioning club took 4 more years of fighting. Beckham burned through multiple stadium sites, a public referendum, and repeated political blocks in Miami before the league would sign off. The $25 million fixed fee was only the entry ticket. Actually building the club, the roster, the operations, and eventually the stadium was estimated to cost between $200 million and $250 million. Beckham did not have that. His entire career of wages and endorsements is estimated at around $800 million before tax, and most of it was already spent, invested, or committed elsewhere inside David Beckham's portfolio. So Beckham did the only thing that he could do given his financial situation. He brought in outside financing. He kept the cheapest ticket in the building, that $25 million right, and brought in billionaires to fund the building itself. When the ownership was reported in 2019, the split told the whole story. The Moss brothers, Cuban-American telecom billionaires, held 37.5%, and businessman Marcelo Clare held another 37.5%. Japanese investor Masayoshi Son held 15%, and Beckham, the man whose name was on the entire project, only held about 10%. Beckham and the Moss brothers later bought out the other two. Ares management then put in around $150 million of preferred equity and another $75 million after that. You do not need to own the most of anything. Own the cheapest claim on the upside and then trade slices of it for the capital that builds the rest as you need it. Beckham's $25 million option was valuable precisely because it was cheap. That gap between his fixed strike price and the real market price was his value contribution to the deal. He spent most of it buying in the partners who could fund everything else. So take the honest scoreboard. The headline says David Beckham turned $25 million into $1.45 billion. In reality, he owns a minority of the club, and that stake is worth hundreds of millions. Now, that is a real fortune, but it's nowhere near $1.5 billion. Then something happened that would skyrocket the popularity of Inter Miami overnight in a way that no one would have expected. Phase 5, the $585 million club that Messi turned into $1.5 billion. In 2023, Inter Miami signed Lionel Messi, and the league structured his deal using Beckham's own playbook. Messi's package, worth up to $150 million, ran on salary, a signing bonus, an equity option in the club, and revenue sharing with Apple, Adidas, and Fanatics. MLS had copied Beckham's own salary for equity trick to supercharge Beckham's own team. Club revenue went from around $56 million in 2022 before Messi to roughly $200 million in 2025. Sportico valued the franchise at $585 million pre-Messi, and in February 2026, it put Inter Miami at $1.45 billion, the most valuable club in MLS. In December 2025, the club won its first MLS Cup, beating Vancouver 3-1. And the ownership group controls Miami Freedom Park, a privately funded $1 billion billion stadium and mixed-use development that opened in April 2026. Phase 6, the $26 million a year job to do nothing. While the club was being built, David Beckham was finishing the project he started as a young player. He was making certain that he owned brand Beckham outright. For years, his name and likeness had been licensed through companies sitting under a parent called DRJB Holdings. In 2019, Beckham paid a reported $50 million to buy back the roughly one-third stake held by his former partner, Simon Fuller. For the first time, he controlled his name completely. The business underneath it is unglamorous and extremely durable. DB Ventures licenses the Beckham name to Boss, Stella Artois, Tudor, Shark Ninja, and Bowers & Wilkins. He's a founding partner in the whiskey brand Hyde Club with Diageo, a stake reported at around $50 million. Then in 2022, he sold most of it on purpose, and the way he took the payment is the whole move. Authentic Brands Group bought 55% of Beckham's brand for a reported $269 million. Beckham kept the other 45%. ABG is the licensing giant that owns the commercial rights to Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Muhammad Ali, Shaquille O'Neal, and Reebok. Rather than take only cash, he took equity in Authentic Brands Group itself. Beckham sold most of his single name into a machine that owns hundreds of names and took shares in the machine. In one transaction, he converted a brand that lived or died on one man's reputation into a slice of a diversified intellectual property portfolio worth billions. And this is a real operating business, not a vanity holding. In 2024, DRJB Holdings reported revenue of $92.3 million, up about 1%, and a pre-tax profit of $44.9 million, up 24%. Dividends came to $75.7 million, and Beckham's 45% delivered a reported £26 million for the year. There are no factories and no inventory behind that, which makes it close to pure margin. Beckham also owns Studio 99, the production company behind the 4-part Netflix series about his own life. When your entire fortune runs on reputation, controlling how your story gets told is risk management. That series reframed an old scandal on his own terms. In the same window, he was rebuilding toward a knighthood. There's one honest risk here. The whole machine runs on reputation, which is the one asset that you cannot insure. A 2017 email leak damaged Beckham's image and took him roughly 8 years to rebuild. His tourism deal with Qatar, reported at around £150 million over 10 years, drew heavy criticism over that country's human rights record. The reputation is the engine. It is also the thing that can blow up, which brings us to the number that settles the argument. Phase 7, where Beckham's real fortune actually sits. In 2025, the Sunday Times Rich List put David and Victoria Beckham together at £500 million, about $670 million. 12 months later, that same list put them at $1.185 billion. They doubled in a single year, and David Beckham became the first British sportsman to sit in a confirmed billionaire household. The compilers pointed at one cause: his American investments, meaning Inter Miami and the property development wrapped around it. He was named in the King's birthday honors in June 2025 and knighted that November. 1 month after that, the club he built on a $25 million option won the championship on fire. His real wealth sits in 3 places: a minority position in Inter Miami, his retained 45% of the brand business, and his shares in ABG. That is an estimate rather than an audit. The club is private, the exact percentages are not disclosed, but the shape is clear and how he got there. Now, go back to that 70% pay cut. In 2007, David Beckham walked away from Real Madrid, and the football world decided he was finished. But that pay cut brought him a $25 million ticket into an asset class that now sells for $500 million. So here's what you should take away from this story. Own your name outright, do not rent it. Take the option on the asset that only goes up over the bigger check today. And when you cannot afford to build the whole thing, own the cheapest claim on the upside and bring in the capital that can. Beckham wasn't the highest paid athlete in the world, but he was smart enough to realize that true wealth wasn't built by being a line item on a balance sheet. It was built by owning the balance sheet. If you want to see the man who ran the same playbook in basketball and built a media company on top of it, the LeBron James breakdown is on your screen now. Different sport, same structure. I'm Buster. I'll see you next time. Peace.